Okay guys, I am a moron. I recorded a whole bunch of videos all at one time, took a whole afternoon trying to do it, and did the whole thing with some spinach in my teeth. So as I don't really have the time to re-record all these videos, I need to edit them, I need to get them out because some of them have to do with the Halloween season. You're just gonna have to grin and bear with me. So it's not too noticeable most of the time. I have my, my lips kind of cover it and whatever, but if I sort of open my mouth wide enough or smile or something, it's pretty noticeable. So sorry in advance, getting this out of the way, spinach in my teeth. Life lesson, whenever you do something, always check your teeth first. So here's the video. Hello, and welcome to a new series I'm going to be doing called Never Have I Ever. This is going to be a series that will pop up every once in a while where I'll explore franchises that I have either never seen a single entry of or that maybe I've only seen one entry in. To give you an example, the first round in this series will be the Scream films, which, believe it or not, I have never seen. Not a single one. Before I get too far into this video though, I do want to say that all of these Never Have I Ever videos will have spoilers. This is not a spoiler-free zone. I will talk about anything and everything I want to in these films, so if you want to go into them fresh, as much as it pains me to see you go, feel free to click off this video right now. Okay, let's jump into it. Our first movie is Scream, a 1996 horror film directed by Wes Craven and starring Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Rose McGowan, Jamie Kennedy, Roger Jackson as the voice, Drew Barrymore, and more. In Scream, a serial killer in a Ghostface Halloween costume begins stalking the teens of a small California town, but seems to have a particular focus on Sidney Prescott, whose mother was murdered a year earlier. So, Scream. This film came out in 1996, was one of those that every single person I knew saw. Except me. I just had zero interest in horror at that time. And when its follow-up came out a year later, I skipped it because I hadn't seen the first one. And then I skipped the third one a few years after that because I hadn't seen the first two. But I digress. First things first, let's talk about the original. Scream was a massive hit when it came out in the mid-90s. By then, the slasher genre was pretty played out. There had already been a ton of Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween movies by that point, and an avalanche of copycats. The genre was getting a bit stale, but writer Kevin Williamson had something that felt fresh. He had a new killer with a meta approach.
It's also the point at which the dialogue becomes sort of self-referential and self-aware, and it sort of lets the audience know that, we're aware of that the horror movies do exist in our film.
Right.
And,
which was one of the breakthrough things of the films. We talk about actual films and a lot of different films and a lot of different film actors.
I always thought if you actually had a movie about kids who have seen every horror movie ever made, then that may be the end to scaring the audience in the way that the whole world, these people actually live in a world where all these horror movies have played, and they grew up with their VCRs and they're aware of all this stuff. And what do you do if you get a phone call in the middle of the night and you're in the middle of nowhere? What do you do?
Craven wasn't easy to get on board. He had been approached multiple times by production company Dimension and rejected it every time until his remake of The Haunting fell through and he found himself without a project. So what was it like watching Scream 25 years later for the first time? I mean, it was fine. I enjoyed it. I wasn't over the moon about it, but it was enjoyable. I love Neve Campbell and I feel like I never get to see her enough. Even in just the first film, she does feel like she creates an iconic Scream queen in the Sidney Prescott character. I'm not sure that's what she meant to do or wanted to do, but like Jamie Lee Curtis before her, Campbell certainly defined the character that would be the heart of the whole franchise. The supporting cast is also pretty solid, including surprisingly Rose McGowan and Jamie Kennedy, two people that I honestly have never really cared for. Courtney Cox is probably at her best in the entire series in this film.
I'm not here to fight, I just need to talk. Kenny, camera, now.
What really makes this film what it is, though, is Williamson's script. Wes Craven certainly brings a master's touch to the directing, but Williamson's way of directing and redirecting you to different characters to suspect as the killer is pretty masterful. To be clear, I had sort of an idea of who the killer was. When the film is 25 years old, you're bound to hear who it was somewhere along the way. But I wasn't completely sure that was the case, and Williamson definitely misdirected me on several occasions. At one point, the obvious choice seemed like Randy, the video store worker obsessed with horror. Then there was Sidney's dad, who they made a pretty good case for. And I even thought the principal of the school could have been the killer at one point until he got unceremoniously offed by Ghostface himself. One thing that really surprised me was how quickly the killer goes after Sidney. The attempt on her life happens right after Drew Barrymore's character is offed. And while she survives that first attempt and plenty of other people are killed after, it feels a little strange that she's singled out so quickly. The tension that Craven and Williamson build is palpable, and a lot of the scenes where Ghostface is going after one of his victims keeps you on the edge of your seat. But if I'm being really honest, the hard misogyny of the killer gets old really quick. I'm at a point in my life where I'm just kind of sick of hearing an attacker or killer character scream bitch and chase women around. I think that's one of the reasons I've avoided the Elm Street series. Overall, like I said at the beginning of this review, Scream is an enjoyable film. I could see why it has such a huge fan base. Is it a classic? I think for a lot of other people it is. I don't think it is for me. I don't see me revisiting this the way I do with the original Halloween or the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It is fun though, and it's certainly something I recommend seeing at least once. All right, that is it for the first in the Scream edition of Never Have I Ever. Over the coming weeks, I'll be talking about Scream 2, 3, and 4. And if anyone is curious, no, I will not be talking about the MTV series just because it's a television series and I'm only talking about film franchises. So that's it for this one. You can like, comment, and subscribe below. I certainly appreciate you doing any of those things, and I will see you in the next one.